All right, today we're going to go microscopic to understand the one thing that connects every single living thing on this planet, the very foundation of biology itself. Now, really, take a second and think about it. What are you actually made of? I'm not talking about skin and bones. I mean, what are the fundamental, teeny tiny little pieces that build the amazing, complex machine that is you? Well, the story of how we figured that out starts almost 400 years ago. And it didn't begin in some fancy lab, but with a curious mind, a pretty simple microscope, and, believe it or not, a little piece of tree bark. So let's dive into that first glimpse into a world that had been totally invisible to us, an observation that would end up being the bedrock for all of modern biology. So, picture this. It's 1665. A scientist named Robert Hooke is looking through a microscope that he actually built himself. And what's he looking at? Just a super thin slice of cork. He had no idea he was about to change science forever. What he saw wasn't just a solid piece of bark. Not at all. Instead, he described seeing this pattern of countless tiny, empty boxes, all packed together kind of like a honeycomb. This was it, the very first time anyone had realized that living things were made up of all these separate little units. These little boxes, they reminded Hooke of the small, simple rooms that monks lived in at a monastery. The Latin word for a little room is cellula, and so he called them cells. A simple name for a discovery that was anything but simple. A name that, of course, we still use today. Okay, so Hooke saw cells in cork. But the big question was, is this just some weird thing about tree bark, or was this a clue to a much, much bigger pattern in the natural world? What's really cool is that you can pretty much repeat this discovery yourself with something from your kitchen. If you peel off one of those super thin, see-through layers from an onion and pop it under a microscope, you see something pretty amazing. Just like the cork, you see the onion is made of all these individual repeating units. These are the onion's cells. And here's the kicker. It doesn't matter if you have a giant onion or a tiny little one, that basic building block, the cell, it stays the same size. This is probably the best way to think about it. Imagine an organism is like a house. The cells are the individual bricks. You simply can't have the house without the bricks. It doesn't matter if it's the smallest flower or the biggest whale. Everything is built from these essential units. But of course, not all life is built on the same scale. The world of cells is just unbelievably diverse. You've got organisms that are just a single brick, and then you have structures built from trillions upon trillions of them. So on one end, you have unicellular organisms, right? Like bacteria. The whole creature is just one single cell doing its thing. But then you have us, multicellular organisms. Our bodies are made of trillions of cells that all have to work together, forming groups like tissues and organs, each with a very specific job to do. And in these super complex organisms, there's this really beautiful and simple rule. Form follows function. The shape and the structure of a cell are perfectly designed for the specific job that it has to do in the body. Just take a look at these two. The blood cells are round and smooth, perfectly shaped to zip through tiny blood vessels carrying oxygen. The nerve cell, on the other hand, is long and has all these branches built to send signals across huge distances in your body. Different jobs, completely different designs. So over the centuries, all these different observations, from Hooke's piece of cork to the specialized cells in our own bodies, they all started to come together to form one of the most important ideas in all of science. So Hooke kind of cracked the door open, right? And then other scientists just burst right through it. In 1674, a guy named Leeuwenhoek found a whole universe of tiny, living, single-celled creatures swimming around in pond water. Fast forward more than a century, and two scientists, Schleiden and Schwann, connect the dots and propose that all living things, plants and animals, are made of cells. Then, in 1855, a scientist named Virchow adds the final crucial piece. Cells don't just pop into existence. They only come from other cells that already exist. And all that work gives us the three core principles of what we call cell theory. It's pretty straightforward. Number one, if it's alive, it's made of cells. Number two, the cell is the most basic unit of life, the fundamental brick. And number three, all cells come from other cells. These three rules, they govern all of life as we know. So we know what cells are and we know the rules they play by. But what's actually happening inside one of these little rooms? You see, the cells Hooke saw were empty because, well, they were dead. A living cell isn't an empty room at all. No way. It's more like a bustling city or a nonstop factory, just packed with these tiny little machines called organelles, and each one has a specific job to do to keep the whole operation humming along. And while there's a ton of different organelles, almost every cell is built around three main features. You've got the plasma membrane. Think of it as the factory's gatekeeper. Then there's the nucleus. That's the control center, the main office with all the blueprints. And finally, the cytoplasm. That's the busy factory floor where all the action happens. Let's just focus on that gatekeeper for a second. The plasma membrane isn't a solid wall. It's way smarter than that. It's selectively permeable, which means it very carefully controls what gets in, like food and nutrients, and what gets out, like waste products. It's the cell's front door and its security system, all rolled into one. So, when you really think about it, the next time you look in the mirror, you're not seeing just one single thing. You're looking at a highly coordinated society of trillions of tiny individual cells. Each one is a little life form, specialized for its own job, but they're all working together, all following those same three basic rules of life. Which really leaves us with a kind of mind-bending question, doesn't it? If every single one of the trillions of cells in your body is built from the exact same blueprint and follows the exact same rules, then what is it that makes you, you?